do you find that they're back through even ancient times that the dogman has been around?
It would appear that they have. Those hieroglyphs came from something. Almost all those hieroglyphs that you see, they came from something. They weren't something that was just pulled out of thin air. As far as those hieroglyphs go, the deity that they're supposed to represent is called Anubis, the guardian of the underworld, from what I understand. I'm not a theologist, so I wouldn't be the one to try and give a lecture on this, but that is supposedly Anubis that you see in those hieroglyphs. I wouldn't be surprised, since dogmen had to come from somewhere. They didn't just magically appear in 1887 when the supposed first encounter happened in Wexford County, Michigan. I think they were around back then, and that's where the hieroglyphs came from.
Right. Wow, that is interesting that it would have been something from the underworld.
I believe the dogmen are a product of some type of DNA manipulation eons ago. And we read about the dogmen off an isle of India. And they were silk traders, and they were wonderful silk weavers. They had hands. And the writings of the time, they couldn't talk. They'd like bark and whine and talk to each other in that way. You know, essentially the writers of the time were saying they're communicating in some kind of telepathic sense, even though the word probably wasn't available then. You know, there were minds speaking to each other, whatever. We read about that in antiquity and histories. And kings would send swords and bows and arrows to these dogmen as tribute to, like, please don't come attack us, because they were vicious in battle, and a lot of them were hired mercenaries for a lot of these early realms, if you were, to go out and fight alongside their armies, and they were horrible, vicious fighters.
We were doing our normal thing, which is sitting around a campfire, guitar, that sort of thing, and just sort of watching. On this hill we were on, there's sort of a fire break that has been cut there, sort of on the edge of the national forest. And I heard noises off in the woods, and then I saw something move across that fire break that at the time I took to be a Bigfoot juvenile. And I got up and walked down the hill to look for it, which is something I would typically do. And I got a ways down the hill, and I heard noises off to my right in the woods. And then I could see something sort of moving, and then this head popped out of the tree line, and, you know, I was expecting to see Sasquatch. And I'm sort of standing there looking at this, going, now wait a minute, this has a long snout. Sasquatch don't have long snouts. And then I'm going, wait a minute, this thing has pointed ears, which they don't have. Then it sort of curled its lip up and bared its teeth and snarled, and I did something that I almost never do, and that's turn around and move as fast as I can back to the campfire. And at that point, I think Kris was probably fairly convinced I was nuts. I couldn't even really tell him what I saw, other than I said something like Bigfoot don't have snouts. I was stunned enough that I couldn't even really describe it to him.
At that point, he literally did come running back into camp. Mike he will go off, and I will wait 5 minutes and then go follow him. He'll go off in the woods, and we generally go without lights and all that, but he came running back into camp. That afternoon, I had just bought a new handgun. I bought a 40 caliber handgun and 3 clips and loaded with hydroshock ammunition. And he come running back into camp and explained to me what he saw. And I said, no, that can't be. Mike is my best friend and my partner. He's not going to tell me a lie. So, okay, the very first time I've ever had a weapon out in Bigfooting, I happen to have a handgun. So, all right, I pulled the handgun out. Let's see that this thing fires. I fired 1 shot in the air. And then we heard movement. As soon as I shot that shot in the air, as soon as we heard it, off to the northwest, which is to the right side of the fire break, we heard bipedal movement coming towards us to the side. It came out of the brush. We both had, at that time, trigger-operated spotlights. We both had them in our hands because we were back at camp, back at the truck. We both dug them out, both spotlighted. A dog hindquarter came out and midriff came out. I said audibly, "My name is Kris Huckins. I'm going to fire this weapon at you if you do not identify yourself at this moment." And I waited 3 to 5 seconds, fired a shot. It retreated back in the woods. I know I hit it in what I could see, which was a right leg and midsection. It retreated. We could hear it walk and circle around a little farther up the trail. We followed it with the sound and the light. It came back in. I fired again, hit it in midsection, with completely identifying myself, telling it, if you do not identify yourself, I am going to fire. And I am a very good shot. Mike can verify that I am an excellent shot.
I will vouch for that. And, I mean, you know, we knew it wasn't Bigfoot at that point. And
Yeah.
We were thinking, you know, maybe a person fooling around because, you know, we know people who think we're silly about the Bigfoot thing. We said, okay, you know.
Maybe up there screwing with it.
Yeah. And we wanted to make sure nobody got shot.
This thing came around again growling. It was 30 foot away, completely out of the wood line, on 2 legs, approaching us. We both had spotlight on it. I fired again. I hit it in the chest. Saw the meat part. Saw bone. Heard the bullet hit. It retreated back in the woods. We could hear it running through the woods, fall down, and continue running all the way down the woods. We broke camp, doused the fire as best we could, as best as that we wanted to spend time doing so, and got out of there. And that was that night.
I can tell you in all honesty, at that point I was absolutely petrified. I mean, we're both fairly experienced in the woods. I'm more than fairly experienced in the woods.
We're very well experienced in the woods.
You know, I've encountered mountain lions and bear, you know, and Bigfoot. I've encountered a lot of things out in the woods.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I'm from the home of Bigfoot.
Nothing has ever scared me like that. I don't frighten easily.
Guys, before we go any further with the details of the encounter, I want to clarify some things on its appearance with what you saw. When you saw it standing there and fired at it, I take it you must have had a very good view of what you were shooting at. How close was it to you again?
At the first sighting, it was probably about 40 foot, 40, 45 foot, but it was not a Bigfoot. It was not a man. That's all I can say. You know, it was not supposed to be living. It was a upright, bipedal, canine, lupine, whatever you want to call it. Haunted. I have 6 dogs. This was a dog on 2 legs.
I would agree. I mean, appearance-wise, there was really no question. I mean, the typical sort of hind leg curved hind leg that a dog or a wolf would have. When it came out of the woods that last time, it was using one of its forearms to part the trees out of its way. So it was very definitely walking bipedally. It wasn't like a dog standing on 2 legs. But I mean, very, very, I want to say lupine, more wolf-like appearance to me than dog. But elongated snout, pointy ears, very, very dog or wolf-like eyes.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was curling its lip back the way a dog or a wolf would when it's angry and baring its teeth. And I had very clearly spotlighted at that point.
And that's how we knew I hit it right in the chest.
Yeah, because I was making sure that I gave Kris a good target. And at that point, it was, Kris is saying about 30 feet. I think it was actually probably a little closer than that. I'd say more like 25, but at least in that vicinity.
That's awfully close. Close enough to get a really good view. Before we go any further with the details, I just want to clarify something. I've gotten quite a few reports of what are considered to be dogmen that have a canine appearance like what you're describing, that look like wolves that are standing upright. Also received quite a few reports of dogmen that have more of a primate type structure. They've got more of a man-like leg structure with knees that are pretty similar to what a man would have, for example. Just to clarify, what you saw had a leg structure without the knees that you would expect a Bigfoot or a man to have.
This was a dog walking on two legs. It did not make any biological sense to me.
And the thing is, with Sasquatch, I mean, they have a very definite body type. Broad-shouldered, broad-chested, broad around the middle, massive limbs. And this was, you know,
this was 6 foot, 150, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
You know? It was thin. It was a dog standing on two legs.
And very, very sort of barrel-chested, and
you could even see the nipples.
Thin around.
And it was a male.
Thin around the middle, the way a dog would be, and the legs very definite. Yeah. But, you know, for me, it's like I'm sitting there the entire time going, no, this can't, no. You know.
This was a nightmare. Completely unexpected nightmare.
And, you know, if Kris hadn't been there and he hadn't seen it at the same time and seen the same thing I'd seen, I would have thought that I was, you know, had gone felt and was hallucinating. Because like I said, this just was not on my radar at all. I had read about dogman encounters, and I always just dismissed them as pure myth. Same here. You know, made no sense to me at all.
Okay, yeah, Brent, my name is Jacob, and to my right of me is Justin, and to my left, how you doing, everybody? To my left is Jason.
Okay.
And they're both my brothers. They were with me at the time whenever we had the encounter with the dogman. Like we had spoke on the last video, you know, we were poor and we had a trailer house. We lived in Waco, but like I said, I used the term lately. It was basically China Springs, and it was off of a road called Village Road. And we had a family living there. Some of our cousins, our aunts, and some of our uncles lived there. A lot of our family. And as a matter of fact, our family on my mom's maiden name is Castillo, so hence the name Castillo Village. But a tornado had come through and hit the trailer and had blown off the roof, the walls. And basically what we did was we pulled the loan from an individual that could help us out. And we reinforced the walls with double plywood, and we put that basically aluminum siding on it. We reinforced the roof again. We put it back on. We reinforced the roof. We put 2x4s in the walls versus those 1x4s that they normally come with. And we even put another layer of plywood on the floor, right? And we put new doors on it. So we did a lot of work to it. Anyhow, from there, my brothers were working with me at the time, and we were going to do a demo job in Dallas. And so our boss came to pick us up at 5 o'clock in the morning and picked us up, and we were on the road. We're just north of Hillsboro, in between Hillsboro and Waxahachie, and the sun was coming up. I would say it's about 6:30, and the sun is out. You could see the sunrise and the horizon. You could see really good. And my boss thought he saw what it was, like a bear, right? And so he's like, "Hey, look, there's a bear. There's a bear there." And so I was sitting in the passenger side of the truck. My boss was driving because it was his truck. Justin was in the extended cab behind me, and Jason was sitting behind my boss, right? So he's telling us, look, there's a bear in the distance. And we're like, well, there's no bears in Texas. What are you talking about? And he says, yeah, look up ahead. So I go to looking, and we see it. You know, you can see the torso. You know how it's round, almost look like one of them bears from a distance. You could see it, right? So we thought, well, I told him, pull over, let's check it out. He says, all right. So he goes to pull over. He goes to check it out, and we wanted to check it out. He wanted to check it out. We pull right up next to it, and as soon as we start pulling up next to it, we start noticing some things right away that let us know it's not a bear. Like, we saw this big tail on it that looked like it curved up. It curved up, and it was smooth on the backside, real shaggy on the end of it, and it was long. The tail was longer than my arm was, and we could see that we're like, what type of bear is this, right? The bears don't have long tails.
Something didn't look right about it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So we pulled up. I told him, hey, pull up a little bit more. I can't see the face. He says, well, what type of bear is this? I said, we can't see the face. Pull up more. Because it was really big. It was really long. And so he pulls up some more. And as he's pulling up, we estimated the size to be about flush. When he first pulled up to it, it was about flush with the front of the bumper, and the legs were flush with about the back of the bumper. So it was about the size of the truck. And this was an extended cab. So however large that is, that's about the size of what this thing was laying down. And so he pulled up some more. I said, whoa, wait a second, right there. Man, it wasn't a bear. It was the largest wolf we ever seen. The largest wolf. And the closest thing that we ever seen to it was a werewolf in some type of horror movie. Okay, and the first one that said it was my boss. He's like, hey, that's. I said, it's a wolf. It's a large wolf. He says, hold on. He leans over. He says, man, that looks like one of them they're werewolves, you know, from the horror movies. I said, you know what? That's exactly right. It does look like a werewolf.
So Justin, you were sitting on the passenger side of the vehicle, correct?
Yeah,
okay, so you were looking out of the window also from that side of the vehicle. Now, as he was telling the boss to pull up, did you start noticing the same type things as that your brother Caleb?
Something seemed strange about it because a bear is usually round. You know, something didn't look right, and I knew when I seen the legs and the front arms, I said, well, this is not a bear. It's something else, you know.
Right.
So right away we knew that there was something wrong, and I even told my brother, I'm like, man, we should put it in the truck and take it to a museum.
Yeah, I know that's crazy, man. Hey, now Jason, let me see here. Let's get to your picture, Jason. So you were you looking kind of over your brother to get a look at this creature also?
Yeah, I was looking over both of them.
Right. So you noticed. When did you notice that there was something not right about it and it was different?
First of all, it was a surprise because I was asleep since it was so early in the morning.
Right.
And all I hear is a racket, and everyone's talking about a bear on the side of the road. And so I wake up, and I'm looking, and I see, looks like a werewolf.
Right. Jason, when did you see the hands on it?
Since both of my brothers were looking out, I had to look a little bit higher than them, just real quick. And then once I saw, the hands and the details of the mouth, it was something I'd never seen before. And, I was like, whoa, this is crazy,
Right.
And you can see the skin color of the hands and of the mouth and all that. And it sort of looked like a black, like black skin.
Right. Right. I just couldn't imagine seeing something that is a canine and actually have a thumb, and have humanoid hands. That has to be if it didn't have the hands, you could say this is a Guinness Book of World Record wolf. But having human hands, it puts it in a humanoid category, and that to me is incredible. I can't imagine what you all must have been thinking. So when you actually saw the hands, is that when you knew, Jason?
Yeah, when I saw that, I sat down and I was like, let's go.
Right, yeah. All right, hey, Justin.
Yes, sir.
Now, when you were right behind your brother, so as the truck is pulling up and he's just beginning to get that look past the rear of the creature and seeing the tail, were you noticing like the tail and as it was coming more and more into view, were you kind of watching along with your brother?
Yeah, I was kind of just dumbfounded on how strange it looked. You know, it was weird. It didn't look like anything that I usually seen. You know, I've seen bears before, and it was just something was different about it. You know, it looked like something had just ran it over, because it was blood coming from the mouth.
Right.
And, it looked like something had just hit it, and I'm assuming maybe it was a semi truck, because if a car would have hit it, it would have demolished the car. You know, somebody would have got hurt because it was so big. You know, the bears are probably about 12 or 14 feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When they're standing on their hind legs.
Right.
So it's probably close to that. If
Right.
it was fully from the head to the tail.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And the head, when you looked at the head on the creature, what can you give a description on what you saw?
It looked like a canine. You know, it had ears like a dog, and a snout kind of like a canine.
Right.
And a nostril of a canine. So I was thinking, that's the first thing that crossed my mind. Was like, man, it's a werewolf. You know, a dead one.
Right. Yeah, what did you think about the teeth and stuff? I mean, your brother gives a really good description of
it had fangs on it. You know, like the mouth was open. You could see the mouth open, and there was blood running from the mouth. So, apparently something happened to it. You know.
Right.
And I was just looking at the fangs; they were pretty big. So.
Yeah. You know, I know that whenever a vehicle hits a deer, it totals the vehicle. So hitting something bigger than a deer that has more body mass, even if it was a tractor trailer, I mean, I know it would do so much damage to it that it would have to pull over. So it makes me think that this creature got into some kind of battle, maybe with like a Bigfoot or something. And that sounds so far out. But I mean, the more you thought about it, the feasibility.
Around, you know, so it was just weird, like something out of the water.
Right. I mean, even if a tractor trailer hit it, don't you think, Jacob, that it would have to stop? I mean.
Well, I mean, the animal was so big. You know, like when I said I saw it up, I got a really good view at it because I was in the passenger side, and I mean, when we first pulled up to it, I seen it about the size of the truck, and this thing was so big that I knew if we would have hit it with our vehicle, I mean, our truck would have been totaled. We would have been sitting on the side of the road and right next to it. You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah.
Maybe if the wheeler hit it, maybe we were actually looking around to see if there was a vehicle up ahead that was pulled over, maybe disabled from the back.
Right.
But we looked at it, and then we were like, man, let's get out of here. What if it's
right? Yeah, I think you did the right thing to get out of there. That would have been crazy to get out of the truck and try to load it in the back of a truck. Because I mean, come on, man. I mean, it's a monster.
You know, as far as we were concerned, I mean, the encounter ended, and we went out about our lives, right? So 2 days later, you know, we go out to the movies, we watch a movie, we come home, and it's about 11:30, 12 o'clock, and my brother's putting on my shoes, and I'm getting upset with him about putting on my shoes, and I'm putting on his shirt to, you know, pay him back, show him how it feels like when someone's wearing your clothes. But outside, I start to hear this howling, right? And it's faint, and you can hear it. And then I hear it again, and it's getting closer. And then I hear it again, and it's even louder, and it's even closer. And so my brother comes in, and he starts yelling at me while I'm wearing his clothes. And I said, hold on. I says, don't you hear that? I said, there's something like a wolf howling outside. I said, listen. No, he tells me, don't change the subject. You always trying to. So we get in. I told him, you just got to give it up. You got to listen to this. I said, listen to this. And so he didn't want to give it up. We started to argue. The next thing I know, something hits the house. I mean, it hits the trailer house so hard that it tilts up onto its side, and it felt like it was going to tilt over and rock back, and it hit it again, and it did it again, and it hit it again. 3 times it hit the house, and it felt like it was going to turn it over. I imagine if it wasn't for the hurricane tides we put on it, it might have flipped it over.
Right.
The window cracked, and the wall bowed in, okay? And it came loose from the base plate. And, man, it freaked us out. My brother's like, whoa, hold on. Something's trying to get in. What is that? I said, I don't know. He goes, well, what's trying to get in? I said, I don't know, but it wants in. And apparently it's going to get in. I said, get ready to fight for your life. So we grabbed some metal bats we had and some knives. And then, man, none of us wanted to look out the window, but we did. Right. And there was nothing there, right? So, I mean, we didn't know what it was. By that time, my mom and dad come in. They're like, what are you doing? You're going to knock the whole house over. The whole house was tipping. We're like, it wasn't us. Something's attacking the house. And they're like, well, what is it? I don't know. We heard howling, And so then they're like, well, don't make no noise. Let's check and see what it is. Around that time.
So you were really scared at this point.
Were
you thinking it was the werewolf at this point?
Yeah. I mean, we heard the howling. Yeah. I heard the howling, and it was getting closer and closer. And I had my back towards the window, and I was arguing with my brother, and this thing hit right where our room was. Where my back was turned. It was hitting the wall where my back was at. Okay, so I mean, it freaked me out. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't scare easy, but when something hits your house hard enough to almost turn it over, I mean, it's gonna freak you out. Right. So it freaked me out. It freaked the whole family out, and so we're freaked out. And about a couple minutes passed by. We didn't see nothing. We didn't hear nothing. And I was thinking, man, it couldn't be. I mean, this can't be. I thought it can't be this wolf thing. I thought it's got to be my cousins. It's got to be somebody that's, just maybe they hit our house with a car or something. And so I got really upset. And I thought, well, I'll be damned if I'm going to be in my house and I'm living in fear, right? So I grabbed one of the metal bats and I grabbed some knives and put them in my pant loops. And I told my brothers, come on. I said, let's go out and challenge whoever it was. It's got to be our stupid cousins messing with us. And they're like, no, we ain't going out there. I said, well, I'm going to challenge them. I went outside. They locked the door behind me. And I was really upset. I started hitting the floor. We had a caliche driveway. It's a driveway with those white rocks, right? So I'm hitting the floor. I'm like, come on, you want to hit my house? Come and hit my house now. I'll break your legs. And I got upset, and I was throwing a fit, and I was yelling. And we have dogs out there. I have a dog in the backyard. My neighbor has dogs. There's dogs in the front. And there's a big lamppost in front of our house with a tree by it. And day and night, the birds were always chirping because the light was on. And there's crickets out there, and everything's making all sorts of noise. Well, I'm out there yelling and making, throwing my fit because I was upset, thinking it had to have been my cousins or somebody playing a prank on us. And I stopped to hear the response, right? And there was no response. As a matter of fact, what started to freak me out is that not even the dogs barked. You couldn't go outside and talk without the dogs barking. All right, the crickets weren't even cricketing. The birds weren't even making any noise. There was no noise at all. I mean, it was dead silence. Nothing. And so I thought, well, something ain't right here. Oh man, I thought, man, I'm the biggest fool. What am I doing? So then I started to feel a little bit of fear, and I started walking backwards. And I made it back up to the porch, and I started banging on the door. Let me in. So they let me back in. I get back in there. We locked the door, and we all slept real close to each other that night. I mean, we was afraid.
There was some things we were talking about, Brent, right before you go. That there was some stuff that they saw that I didn't see during the house episode. When they went to the house.
Do what now?
When they came to our house,
right,
I went out the front door, and my brother Justin went out the back door too.
Right.
Because the front, making the fool of myself, yelling and screaming. Right?
Right.
And he saw some stuff that you might want to know.
Yeah, I would like to hear about that. What was it? And see, your audio's cutting out, and this is the kind of stuff I would like to have on clear audio. But go ahead, and we'll see how clear it ends up being.
Well, I walked out the back, and I seen, with the flashlight, I seen like eyes. You know, like how the coyotes hang in packs?
Right, yeah.
I seen a whole bunch of eyes in the back, and I thought they were maybe coyotes.
Right.
And I kept flashing the light, and I heard something growl at me. So when I heard that, I was like, man, this is not it's not a coyote, because the coyotes usually whelp and they'll take off running.
Right.
Well, I shined the light, and I see this thing turn around, and the eyes were glowing. And when I shined the light at it, it kind of like looked at me and then turned around and went running towards the back of the yard. We were living on like a couple acres, like 2 acres, and there was a horse farm at the end of it, and it started running down the fence line, and I looked, and it looked like a pack of dogs running down the fence line. Well, the next morning, my uncle comes knocking on my door, and we had 2 dogs that were always going over there and messing with their chickens because they had a farm.
Right.
And my uncle comes and tells me, he's like, hey, you need to tie your dogs up because they went over there and they killed 3 of my pigs. And I said, there's no way possible that my dogs got out and killed 3 of your pigs.
Wow.
They were locked up in the pen. I had locked them up because a couple of days before he had came and told me that they were eating his chickens. So I put them in the pen, and there's no way that would have happened. And he says that they ate them so bad that they were eating the rears off of them, and their noses were all mangled up.
Wow.
I said, there's no way my dogs could have done that much damage to 3 of your pigs.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
My dogs are pretty big, but there's no way they could have changed like that. You know what I mean?
That's a very interesting case there with Jacob and his brothers. You should go see the full description of the creature, because he gives description of the teeth, the tongue, the hands, the claws, even the molars in its mouth. It's a very good description, and the story is a full story on the first interview, and the audio was being cut out due to high traffic and a thunderstorm that was coming through on my end. So that was just a few clips of the interview, and I'll get more from the brothers at another time and bring that to you. Now, first of all, I was wanting to talk about what these creatures may be. And when we look at Genesis 6, and the sons of God basically looked upon the daughters of men and thought they were fair and took unto themselves wives, and basically had these children that was called Nephilim. Nephilim was basically a hybrid between an angelic being and a human being, specifically women. Now, Melba Ketchum is a forensic scientist who does DNA work, and many samples was given to her, and she took some of these samples and sent them out to 3 other geneticist labs, and they found that the Bigfoot samples. Now, I don't know of any dogman samples, but they found that the Bigfoot samples, the hair and the tissue and things like that, were coming back as female human mitochondrial DNA. Now, the mitochondrial DNA tells you who the mother is. So, from the DNA testing, they found that there was DNA that was human in these Bigfoot creatures, and I don't know about dogman yet, but I think dogman may be a little bit something different. We'll talk about in a second. But say the Bigfoot nuclear DNA was unknown, so the father side was unknown, the mother side of these creatures was female human, and specifically in most cases it was turning out to be female from the Middle East region, and that would be what you would expect to match Genesis 6, and specifically would be the daughters of Cain. Okay, every once in a while some of the DNA was pointing towards First Nation people, the Indian women that had been being kidnapped, and there's a lot of stories about these warriors basically would go out during the day, and these Bigfoot would come down during the day and take the women and sometimes eat them, and and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes use them for mating. So we would expect to see some DNA from Native American people and then also from the Middle East, and that would match what the scriptures say. Now, according to the book Enoch and according to the Bible, the Old Testament in Genesis, other flesh was corrupted besides just human flesh. These angelic beings took animals and hybridized with these animals. So to me, I think a dogman most likely is a genetic mixture between an angelic being and a wolf in some cases. Sometimes they have like a baboon looking face, and maybe Bigfoot is some mix between a woman and an angelic being that looks like a Bigfoot. Who knows? But it's interesting to see that the genes have women and then unknown, and from the Middle East, and then Native American. Okay, another thing I was wanting to look at was these beasts have encounters with human beings a lot, and sometimes I think that people come up missing. If you look at the 411 David Paulides stories, people just come up missing, and it's very strange. And sometimes some creature is seen with something over its shoulder running across the ridge, and right at the time someone comes up missing, and they can't ever find the person. Or sometimes the people are found. Sometimes these children are found. They say the dog ate my hat, or the dog people was telling us something, or the monkey people, we were hiding from them, we thought you were the monkey people coming up on us. And so there's different stories and what have you about these kind of things. But I think in most cases they aren't allowed. There's some kind of barrier, because there's so many times that I hear about the creatures running around on the roof or looking in through the window, or they almost seem to attack human beings, but then something restrains them where they could easily, every single time, take a human being out, but they don't. So there seems to be a barrier, similar to like when we see in the book of Job, when the sons of God went before God, and God said, "Have you considered my servant Job?" And Satan, who had come before the Lord, said, "You know I have, but you have a hedge set up around him, and you know I can't get to him." So there seems to be a barrier that God has set up, that sometimes we give permission, like with the black-eyed kid phenomenon. They ask permission, and sometimes we give permission, or we open those doors for these kind of creatures to do something with us, or maybe some kind of curse, or I don't know. Who knows all the answers to these things? But in the future, is there anything that would indicate that that barrier would be dropped. And I was looking at Revelations 6:8. And this is where the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are beginning to ride. And the pale horse rider has just come out. And it says in Revelation 6:8, and said, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat upon him was Death, and hell followed him." So here's the pale horse rider. His name is Death, and hell follows this rider on this pale horse. Okay? And hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over the 4th part of the earth. Now, power was given not to just the pale horse rider, but given unto them. Hell was following, so them has power over a 4th part of the earth. To kill with the sword, which is war, kill with hunger, which is famine, and to kill with death. That's some kind of spiritual thing. The angel of death, basically, in the Old Testament, we've seen. So I think that that's some kind of spiritual kind of death that, you know. And then it says, this part's really what I was wanting to get to, and with the beasts of the earth. So power was given to kill with the sword, hunger, death, and with the beast of the earth. Of the earth. Beasts of the earth. Now some people might say, well, that's talking about lions and bears and things like that. But the Bible says that the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. Or if you look at the beasts that are before the throne in Scripture, there was 4 different beasts that were before the throne. One had an eagle head and a human body. One had a bull's head and a human body. One had a lion's head and a human body. And one of them was humanoid, mostly humanoid looking. So you have different heads mixed with humanoid bodies. And they were called beasts that were before the throne. So, my question is there a point, time, which would be coming during the riding of the 4 horsemen during the time of tribulation, that there would be this restraint taken off, and these Bigfoot and these dogmen and creatures like this and these beasts of the earth? These are not beasts of heaven, these are beasts of the earth. This restraint is going to be lifted, and these armies of dogmen like we heard about in ancient times, or armies of Nephilim that even the Romans fought and killed these giants, and even Israel in the tribe of like Moab and in the biblical times, they were constantly pursuing, like Og, and David killed Goliath, and they were constantly pursuing these giant Nephilim beings, these hybrid beings, and killing them. And I believe at that point that there was boundaries that they just didn't want to cross anymore, and those who remained went into hiding. Maybe there was some rules set up, I don't know. But there looks to be a time when the beasts of the earth will not have a barrier anymore, because authority is given unto them. Revelation 6:8. Look at it and tell me what you think. Thank you. I will see you on the next video. I have more on this subject, the Bigfoot subject, and the Hollow Earth subject, subterranean realm subject. Got more on those kind of things coming. Hope to get the interview with the brothers a little more clean version where the audio comes out good, where I can give you the whole interview and not be nerve-wracking to listen to. Go to Facebook Mysteries to search. Contribute to this channel to help me make these videos. And I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Be blessed.